problems of practice and problems of research. This is an activity we did not have time for on Thursday, but it can be very helpful. So if we look at the green here, right? One of these is a problem of practice and one of these is a problem of research. Okay, so there is a critical need to build capacity among urban districts to meet learning goals for underrepresented students. So ask yourself the question, is this a problem of practice? So is this something that just needs to happen out in the schools, or is this a problem of research? A problem of research is something we need to understand. Okay, so again, I'm going to read it. There's a critical need to build capacity among urban districts to meet learning goals for underrepresented students. Now, the other green statement says, although capacity is discussed often in the literature, there is a need for a clear definition and theoretical framework to ensure all aspects of capacity can be discussed. Is this a problem of practice or a problem of research? Again, remembering that a problem of practice is something that needs to happen out in the districts, and a problem of research is something that we don't understand. So I think many of you probably have already thought this, but the first one is a problem of practice, and the second one is a problem of research, right? We need to define something more clearly. We need a theoretical framework. That's a problem of research. The fact that we need to build capacity in districts is a problem of practice. There are problems of practice that have already been researched. Like, we don't actually need any more research on them. And there are problems of practice that do need more research, right? And so partly we're convincing our reader that we need more research on our problem of practice, all right? So this one here, problem of practice. Retaining highly qualified teachers at urban districts is a consistent issue, leading to students having a series of substitute teachers and an endless round of new teachers. This actually is over-researched. So it's a problem of practice that doesn't actually need a lot of new research, but maybe there's a little bits and pieces that we need to understand. So this is another paper I'm writing. The literature demonstrates that although salary has an impact on teacher retention, organizational factors such as leadership play a more pivotal role. However, despite the importance of organizational factors, little research has been done on the role of professional development in fostering teacher retention. So I'm saying, look, here is a problem of practice. We need to retain highly qualified teachers. That has been researched a lot, but there's a little piece that we don't know about, which is the role of professional development. Okay, so hopefully that clarifies a little bit between the problem of practice, or as said in your qual 2, the problem, and the research problem or the research purpose. Okay, back to the slides and the methods. Okay, so I know we've already talked about the need to take notes during book club, and that these lead into how you write your methods, and you'll see where the example where he does this. I'm not going to go too much into this, but this is essentially, these next 2 slides have exactly what's in your pilot study, what it talks about, what you need for each section of the introduction, of the methods. And remember that what in your pilot study assignment, if it's in bold, it is your heading, right? So anything that's in bold should be your heading. And then it describes exactly how much. Now, you may write more than what is asked for here, but 1 paragraph, 1 to 2 paragraphs is basically fine. Okay? I'm going to give an example of each one of these. I don't know what that slide was. Sorry about that. So, sorry, the slides got a bit mixed up here. Just give me a moment. Okay, I fixed the issue. So your research design is your first part of your, well, after you have a brief introduction, your research design is the first part of what you're going to do. So you're gonna have your introduction of what you're doing, and then your research questions, and then you're getting into your research design. Now I'm drawing these examples from an example that is already available to you on Blackboard. under the syllabus and other important documents. Okay, this is a mixed methods study by Daryl Hayden, who was one of my dissertation students from last year. So the research design has 1 or 2 paragraphs that introduce and define the methodological approach of the study with citations and discusses the key characteristics of that method, and then says why that method is important to conduct the study. Okay, so you'll notice here that he says the pilot study will use a mixed methods approach that is a synthesis, including both quantitative and qualitative research. So he's kind of giving an overview, right? Now he's going to give the rationale. Mixed methods research is an approach to knowledge which attempts to consider multiple viewpoints, perspectives, positions, etc. According to Johnson, this approach is now more frequently attached to the research practice and recognized as a 3rd major research method. And then he goes on to describe the strength of mixed methods. All right. And he talks about triangulation. Triangulation of measures provides persuasive evidence. Now, notice, so there's actually quite a lot of rationale, describing the rationale as to why mixed methods is the best approach here. And also notice that he is citing a number of people. And that's a very important part of your research design, is to cite who you are getting this from, which of course could be the books we're reading in class, but also could be things from Dr. Strom's class or other classes. Okay, next you should have a paragraph or 2 that describes the setting or the context of the study. All right, now for our class, you can actually mention the names, the real names of the places, but for your dissertation, you will disguise the names later. So in this case, Daryl, Dr. Hayden now, very exciting, said the study will be conducted at CSU East Bay, based in Hayward, California, talks about the diverse population, and then gives us some numbers, right? It serves approximately 15,500 freshmen or students, and then it talks about the graduation rate. Now, when you give the context, you have to think about what aspects of the context will be most useful, right? That just giving the breakdown of demographics may not be as useful, but in his case, he's arguing that the graduation rate is really low and that they need financial literacy. So obviously giving the graduation rate is a really important statistic to give, all right? He also talks about the goals of the university to increase graduation rate. That's a key part of the context. If we understand that we want to increase the graduation rate, it gives the reader a contextual understanding of why this study might be important, all right? So he goes on to say financial literacy plays an important role in helping students avoid financial mistakes. And so that's why the study is important within this context. Okay, participants. So participants in sampling are part of the same thing. You're going to be watching a video on sampling also this week. You need to write a paragraph or 2 that describes how you will select your participants. In this case, Daryl wrote that the pilot study will focus on 100 accounting students from within the College of Business. And he's proposing that probably it will be 50 women and 50 men, and that they will be given this survey. And then in addition, that they're supposed to include a representation of major ethnic groups. Now, obviously, he doesn't know yet exactly who they're going to be, but that's what he's going to try to do, all right? Then he says, out of the group of seniors participating in the survey, 8 students will be randomly selected to participate in the focus group. So these are his 2 data collection methods, the survey and the focus group, and he needs to talk about both of them in the data collection, the discussion of the participants. He also talks about how he will select them. He's saying randomly selected out of the survey, okay? And he talks about how he's going to select the folks who are going to take the survey, that they're in an economics class, all right? So these are all need to be justified. Exactly how many people, who they are, why you chose that group of people, how you will find them and select them. And it's perfectly fine if you're selecting them because they're your friends or you know them or something like that for your pilot study. The video on sampling will help a lot with this. All right, instruments and data collection. This is 1 or 2 paragraphs that describes each data source in detail, including a relevant methodological reference. Remember those references. So this first portion describes the instrument. Daryl's describing a survey that already exists in this case. The The survey contains 56 multiple choice questions, 31 are financial literacy tests. They use a multiple choice format. They have a variety of areas: income, money management, savings and investing, spending, and credit, right? So he's talking about the constructs within the survey. Then he goes to his qualitative portion, the interview. Consists of a semi-structured, open-ended interview questions regarding students' experience with financial management and the knowledge they felt they needed in college. All right, so he's describing what exactly the interview is going to be about, and you need to do that in talking about your interview. You also need to talk about whether the questions are open-ended or semi-structured, and what he didn't do was cite the interview book or focus group book to talk about where he got those ideas. Then he gets into data collection. The interviews will be recorded, field notes will be taken, the audio records will be transcribed as soon as possible after the interview. So he's talking about the process of data collection in detail. He even gets more into detail about exactly how he's going to collect the data. In an effort to save time and reduce costs, this research effort will use the financial literacy survey created by Jumpstart. The participants will be randomly selected from a list of students who have declared accounting majors. So now this is an exact detailed list of how he's going to select those participants. Email invitations will be sent out to approximately 200 students, inviting them to participate. There will also be a brief explanation about the study, the confidentiality, and an offer to include a raffle gift certificate. Then he talks about how he's going to give them the survey, and then the open-ended question about in the surveys, etc. All right. So this is the detailed stuff about how to collect data. It's okay if you write this up in a somewhat conversational way. The important thing is to include a lot of detail. How do you think you're going to collect this data? What are you going to do? Okay, so moving on to strengths and limitations or trustworthiness, all right? This, you need to really think about your readings. All of your books talk about how we determine limitations, how we determine trustworthiness. If your book doesn't talk about it, we are going to be reading Miriam, chapter 10, all of us together as part of our class, and that chapter is all about the trustworthiness of qualitative data. Really draw from those readings to talk about how are you going to ensure trustworthiness. All right, now in survey data collection, validity and trustworthiness is determined in a different way. So you'll have to look at the survey book to talk about that. Notice that in the end of this paragraph, Daryl uses the word triangulation. You've probably talked about triangulation with Dr. Strom, but remember that triangulation is where you're comparing results either from multiple people or across multiple data sources. It's a really important word to remember, and I recommend using it if you have triangulation. Okay. Finally, you'll need a paragraph about your positionality. I think you've done a little bit of work about positionality in other classes, but just to remember that positionality is not necessarily a weakness. This is who you are. This is what you bring to the research. This is your story. Your story is very powerful, and I really recommend you write a strong story for your positionality. Why are you excited about researching this? What is important to you? Who are you as a person? And that might include your racial identity, ethnic identity, linguistic identity, maybe some of your experiences with your family. All of those things are what drive us in our research. They're the things that make us passionate, and they need to be in our positionality. So it's not necessarily a thing saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit biased because I really care about the experiences of African Americans. That's fine. That's good to know. We need to just be present in who we are. And that's what a positionality is about. All right. So Daryl's positionality here is not actually a super great example. This is a very nascent in development. All right. He talks about minimizing bias. That sort of thing maybe would go more in your limitations. Okay. So actually, to go back to this for a moment, there's other examples of positionality in Blackboard. So if you pull up other pilot study examples, I think I put up 3 examples. You can look at other ways people wrote up positionality if you need an example. A reminder about methods. So these are just a couple of like key points here, all right? Look back at this video once you've done drafting your methods to make sure you cover these points. Number 1, be specific about how, where, and when you want to collect data. Even if you don't know for sure, take your best guess. Be as specific as possible about your sample. It's okay, don't wrap it in academic language. Just be clear. I will interview 3 teachers from such and such school, right? Very clear. And also it's okay, again, if your sample is a convenient sample. Include charts and tables if it helps. So like district demographics, for example, can be done in a chart. Read the methods of an author you admire. So go back to your literature, find the methods of an author, and you will see many of these pieces in their methods, and think about the way they did it, all right? There are also examples for each kind of data collection on Blackboard. In course materials, there's a folder at the bottom that says book club extra readings. And there are extra readings for interview methods. There's extra readings for, well, for each of your methods, mixed methods, etc. And you'll see examples there. So you can actually look up an example of action research and how they wrote things up. You also want to write up how you created your protocol. What did you think about when you were writing up those questions? Where did you get the ideas of those questions? All right. Cite the methods books. Really easy way to gain points on the rubric. Include the protocol, data collection protocol in the appendix, and be sure that you revise it based on my feedback that I'm going to give you. Okay, and I'll be giving you feedback, of course, on your methods, so everything is a work in progress until we start collecting data. So enjoy writing up your methods. It actually is one of the easiest and funnest things to write up. You can be somewhat conversational about it. You can be very clear. It doesn't have to be quite as academic. Enjoy. Okay. This stuff I'm going to actually cover in an email.